What's up, crew? Welcome to another crew cut. Yeah, so last time I was talking about staying off my foot uh, because, I just needed to take a break. And then if you've been following me on Instagram, you know that I have a fractured metatarsal, a healing fractured metatarsal. Yeah, so off the bike for probably the entirety of February. I'm not seeing the doctor again until the 29th of February, and by doctor I mean my ortho. So yeah, not great. I was actually kind of hoping to get in to see him sooner because I feel like it's going to be healed up before then, and February 29th is very close to the first, to Sedona Mountain Bike Festival. And I'd like to have been on the bike a little bit more than just like one weekend before going back to Sedona. I feel like every time I go to Sedona, it's like I'm coming off of something. I think last year I had a jankled ankle, and the year before I had, actually I wasn't injured, I think, the previous year, but my wrist was still kind of funky. But I think I had done like a really gnarly training session shortly before going to Sedona, and my freaking legs were cooked and sore the entire time. So I was just dying on all the climbs. If you've ridden in Sedona, you know that 1 mile in Sedona is like 3 to 4 miles anywhere else in regards to how it treats your legs. And then the year before that, I think was maybe my first year going to Sedona, which was also like the COVID Sedona year. COVIDona. And that was the year that I was still coming back off of my wrist injury. And I don't even know if I had I'd have to look at the video, but I don't recall what wrist brace I was using. But yeah, things were pretty rough then. I don't think I even rode anything. I don't think I rode Highline that year. Anyway, so that's where we're at. I'm just trying to stay off of it. You can't see it, but I have my crutch back there. They gave me 2 crutches, but I've been making do with just one and just keeping weight off the right foot while I move around for the most part. Like, it doesn't hurt unless I walk around on it. Like, I think last time I talked about how Jeff and I were working, taking that weekend off and working on the back of the truck, the camping setup. And at the end of that day, my foot was pretty sore. I put it up and it was even still sore the next day, which makes sense because I got a busted bone in there. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to make it so that when I get to the end of the day, my foot is not sore at all. So I'm just avoiding causing pain. So I'm grateful that I'm not in pain, kind of like with my wrist. I was just in a lot of pain. And yeah, I'm also grateful that I didn't do it on any like feature or anything. I wasn't trying a feature that I hadn't hit before or doing a sketchy feature. It was just like a dumb crash. And so coming back to the bike, I won't have any weird confidence monsters I was going to say battle, but weird monsters to befriend and come to terms with. So that's all good. Yeah, so, I think last time I also talked about my creative process of doing a little bit at a time. So I'll definitely be continuing that now. I'm not going to lie, the last few days, like since I found out that I have to be off the bike, have been emotionally tough. I've been feeling more sadness about it. I am grateful that I've been working on being in touch with my emotions, and which has allowed me to just feel them and not resist them and let them pass through more fluidly than in the past. I'm not holding on to them as much, so I can just kind of come back to center more often. So definitely putting a lot of those things into practice, and then also using my just regular creative work time to keep me in it, to keep me moving. Full disclosure, I definitely spent a couple of days just at the end of the work day, my day job, and at the end of my day job work day, just going like, I'm just going to take a quick break and watch a couple of YouTube videos, and then it's bedtime. So, you know, that's okay, you know, and what's, even there, I had to teach myself or remind myself that it's to not judge myself for that and make it be okay, because I don't respond well to being admonished for my behavior. Like, that just has never worked for me. So coming from the outside, so I don't know why I try to do it to myself coming from the inside. So that's where things have been at. If you haven't already noticed, it's absolutely gorgeous today here in Southern California. It's been raining quite a lot, and then after today we're gonna get a whole bunch more rain. I think we're talking about getting a month's worth or several months worth of rain in like 3 days, which is gonna be crazy. I think we're gonna get some sandbags for the house. It's probably gonna be fine. I do have an area on the back side of the house that can get a little flooded. It's never come into the house, but if it's going to be that much rain, we might see it come up to these like sliding glass doors that we have in the back. So that's kind of where we're at. I wanted to do some behind the scenes stuff with you, either on this or in a separate video, because sorry, I'm getting distracted by a really cool lifted truck with a flatbed. But I wanted to kind of give you some behind the scenes stuff on my editing. I was going to show you, like, I don't know if we talked about this in the past. I'm sure I've talked about some of my process, but I thought I'd show you some of that on the actual screen, do a screen recording. So I'm setting up to do that. I can show you maybe what's going on with the Whistler trip, the Whistler Tech trip, and then also show you the couple of series of cuts for the Santa Barbara trip. That might be interesting. Let me know if you think that would be interesting. I would do a screen recording, and then I'd record myself at the same time, and then just do an overlay of myself on the thing. So yeah, I don't know if that's interesting to you. I'm also working on, I've just got my new notes, my new field book. It's in my pocket right now, but I've got a bunch of new skit ideas all of a sudden. The nice thing about going from the old field notes book to a fresh one is I go through the previous one. I'm saying this like I do this all the time. This is the first time going from an old field notes to a new field notes. But what I did when I made the switch or refreshed my field notes book is I went through the old one and found any of the sketches or ideas that I hadn't done, that I hadn't produced, and copied them into the new one, and that gave me fresh eyes on that. Yeah, so that's cool. I also instituted a new icon system in my field notes book. I can't show you right now because I'm driving, but I've got a little icon for if it's a sketch idea. I've got an icon for if it's a video idea or notes on a particular video. And then I feel like there was another one, but those are the two main ones. And when I say icon, I just draw a little thing to show that it's a sketch or it's a video. It's the sketch one is basically the XD, which is the laughing face, the circle around it, just XD circle around it. And then the episode idea or notes is a really simplified video camera, which is just a square and a triangle. The triangle showing the lens, which is actually just symbology that's often used when you're doing set layouts. Yeah. What was the other one? I feel like there was another one. In any case, it's been nice to do that, and it's also made me a little more precise with how I'm keeping notes in the field notes book. I still want it to be really rough and sketchy because I'm still working with a pencil, but I do think I ate up a lot more space in the old one, in the first one, by just writing really crazy. And so I'm being a little more precise in there, which makes it a little bit easier to work. Precision is a weird thing because you want, in early stages, it's nice to be rough, coarse grain, imprecise, and loose. And then eventually you get more and more precise. But you also don't want the messy stuff to get in its own way. So I'm just kind of working with that balance. I want to get to art, the War of Art, in just a second and give you my review and recommendations on that. But all this together, just that book, I'll just tell you about it now because that book has just kind of really gotten me more into my creative process. I've always been about building my creative process and iterating on it. And working with the field notes, I've really dug that because it's another way of me just kind of getting things out there and getting things down, getting myself a little bit more organized, adding just enough organization to my life and to my creative process. If it's too organized, if I'm too clear on where we're going to end up, I become disinterested. I like there to be some mystery, some adventure in the journey from idea to final thing. I think because for me, creativity is really about revealing. It's about uncovering things that I hadn't seen before, or seeing things in a way that I hadn't seen them before. And so, like, if I already know where I'm going to be, then I already know, like, oh, we already know that, right? It's like I've answered the question already, and I don't need to keep searching for the answer if I know what our destination is going to be. So I'm just kind of working on the balance of using the process to define a direction, a more precise direction, and leaving the discoveries that will occur from going in that direction, leaving those open, if that makes sense. So speaking about the War of Art, so I would recommend it to anybody who is a creative or considers themselves a creative or just wants to be a creative. What the main things I got from that book is validation and inspiration. So it validated a lot of the feelings that I have. Like, I sometimes interact with other people who consider themselves to be some sort of content creator, and I find myself sometimes at odds with their approaches or their attitudes. And I think it's a lot of times I find myself at odds, and I would find myself questioning myself or feeling like I needed to defend myself or convince them. But this book has made me realize that it's not useful for me. And it's, he talks about resistance in that book, and that's a way of me allowing myself to succumb to resistance by, like, concentrating on those people and those attitudes. So it's allowed me to concentrate more on what I'm doing and removing my own levels of resistance. It's also inspired me because it's given me new ideas and new ways of looking at how I operate and the creative process, the work. Yeah, that thing, he talks a lot about doing the work. like just kind of reducing bullshit and just doing the work for the sake of the work. There's times when, and that I really connected with that. That's something that I feel a lot of the times. It's one of those things I think maybe where when I'm interacting with other creators, there will be a large focus on success. However, that success is defined, and it's often defined by getting views or good metrics or making money or setting up relationships with partners and those kind of things. And while I feel all those things are valid and useful for somebody who wants to be a full-time content creator, I also see that it's forgetting the lessons that creatives have known or have had to learn for as long as people have been creating. You know, I guess maybe I talked about this before. Sorry if I did, but I always come back to doing it for the sake of doing it. And getting accolades, getting external measures of success is beyond my control. I can't control that. I can only work on my craft. I can only do the work and make and produce. That's all I can do. And, you know, the work includes making thumbnails. The work includes writing. The work includes paying attention to feedback and incorporating that feedback in a way that also feels good in my body. I think last time I talked about writing and how writing for me is moving my body in a way that makes me feel good in my body. And being involved in the creative process is just as much that. It aligns with that. It's about, you know, moving my heart and my soul and my mind in a way that feels good to me, that just feels right, you know? Yeah. So yes, I would recommend the book. There are parts of the book that I didn't really connect with too much. There's this part of the book where it feels like it wants to convince me that certain things exist in a non-material way, almost in a supernatural or maybe totally in a supernatural way. And I don't really connect with that because, you know, I'm an agnostic at best. And so I didn't connect with that, I didn't need it. I didn't need to be convinced whether or not gods and angels and whatnot actually exist, or actual entities of inspiration, muses, whether or not they actually exist in the world. I didn't need to be convinced of that because I'm okay with the idea that these things maybe just exist in a way in my brain. So yeah, I can see it metaphorically, I understand it metaphorically, but even then, I don't necessarily need to believe in it. Stephen King talked about if you show up, and I think he got it from somewhere else, and I think maybe, and this was also brought up in the book, but I'll just talk about the concept. If you show up, let's believe in a muse for a second, if you show up at the same time, in the same place, every day, or on a regular basis, on a schedule, and in order to do creative work, your muse always knows where and when to find you. And that is great. The way I look at it is if you consistently work in the same place at the same time on a regular scheduled basis for a set amount of time, you're building the neural pathways for that flow and that inspiration to show up at that time. You prepare for it, you prepare the space for it, you set up your intent, your mindset and your intentions as you go into that space. You know you have a limited amount of time, and so you can concentrate on that, and then you have the neural pathways for that to just flow more easily. If you want to call that a muse, if you want to talk about that as like your ritual and saying your prayers so that the gods of inspiration show up for you awesome. That works for you. Cool. I'm okay with just thinking of it as neural pathways and just human habits and being human. But you know, it's worked. It works for us. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it's a Saturday, and we are very late on this, I know, but I am at the coffee house, and I'm gonna go get my crutch, limp in there, and then do some writing. I've got a sketch I'm working on, and I need to kind of nail it down and then film it. Maybe I'll even film it here, so you'll get to. This is kind of a BTS for that. Anyway, hope you're doing well. Hope you're having rad days. Again, thanks for your support, and I'll see you on the next one.